All right, guys, today's video is going to be about a repair because this is horrible. We'll get some video here in a second. I'll get some close in on it, but you can see there's an edge bevel. There's an edge bevel. There's one that's just jacked in. We'll take a good close look at it. Just give me a second. But this is on an H&K. I can't remember the model. Hang on a second. It is a, I don't remember. It's a Heckler & Koch. I'm pretty sure these are Benchmade. All right, guys, you can see here that somebody went to town on this with a super, super coarse stone, did not even get to the apex, and just quit. So I don't know if this was the customer's doing or somebody else, but you can see that is a severely coarse stone, and you can see it's very asymmetrical. And what we're gonna do today is we're gonna try to, as best we can, rectify that for the customer. So first things first, before I start, I have got to do a little bit of a couple things. We have got to clean off my strops, first of all. So that's the thing. Every day, well, not every day. There's a lot of days where the first bit of my, that's all old steel and stuff that I'm pulling out of the balsa. There's a lot of days that the beginning of my day until like 10 is spent, it's 9 o'clock this morning. Is spent doing a lot of stuff that is not directly sharpening, but is related to. This is the time of day where most of the time I'm doing my customer interaction, emails, things like that, debating on whether I'm going to be sharpening or going to the shop to do refinish. I have a good bit of refinishing to do, but the thing is, not going to knots this weekend. I'm hoping to get that knocked out this weekend and get all this sharpening set so that I can get started. So there's a lot of times that I don't actually hit the sharpening bench until like 10 in the morning. And on days like that, I'll just work later. But one of the other things you have to do is before you ever start, you want to look at all your gear and make sure you're good. This is with any job. So I'm starting to have some more cracking in this one stone. This stone's probably going to get replaced soon. Just had to replace 600 grit stone. Thank you, Dwayne. And the other thing was, when you're running a business, sometimes you want to try to save cost as much as possible, right? For you. And you will go beyond the life expectancy of certain things. So, before we start sharpening, this is my old diamond plate. You guys see me use it. There's not very much diamond left on it. It is actually less coarse now than my 220 grit. So I ordered another one. And guys, I should have done it a while ago. I realized the second I started using this, reprofiling times are cut in half with a fresh plate. Now that plate lasted me 2 years. So that's the stuff that, you know, you kind of want to get set up. So let's actually get into this. This knife is very poorly profiled. But we'll get this, give me a second, we'll turn this around, we'll take a good close look at it from the tripod. All right, guys, so this is an H&K Epidemic. Now, I could not find, I believe, the customer said it isn't, but I believe that this knife originally is chisel ground with a slight bevel on the back, which would explain why this side is cut down so much more further. But before the end of the video, I will have a definite answer for you. But you can see that this gentleman has, whoever did this, I'm not saying this gentleman, I'm not 100% sure, really went to town on this. But you can see the initial sharpening from the factory was very, very steep, which is common in these thin double edge or false double edge blades. You get a really steep angle. I just did a stiletto for Vin Ellis in Ohio, and it was really steeply ground on one side versus the other, but that's super asymmetrical. We're gonna try and get that taken care of. But like I was saying, we want to, as much as possible, document how I'm doing this a little bit. So it's something that you guys have asked for before. And so I'll just do it now that I have that new stone. So now we've taken a good look at that. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. But like I said, there's things that you have to do every day that are not necessarily the fun parts of what you could do. And I don't like doing strop maintenance. It's dirty. And there's gonna be probably a good period of time where I'm not able to use these, how fast it takes them to dry. So there's things you don't wanna do, and there's times that you just gotta spend money that you didn't really wanna spend. Like I have to replace the light. I've got to replace my light under this canopy because it rained hard enough the one day that it ran down and through some small holes and dripped water on my canopy light. And so now my canopy light has one side of it that's not working. That's why it looks darker than it usually does. So what I'm getting at is sometimes you just have to replace things. Whether, I mean, you're gonna have to, but the flip side of it is, and I forget it too, is if it's a business, you can write it off. So we're gonna prep our stuff over here and then we'll get started. But I'm not gonna keep you guys long. I just wanted to throw it out there. This is gonna be a video of kind of the steps that I go through on something that is like this, and we'll see how close I can get it to what the customer's wanting. I'm hoping that I can get all of that nasty old bevel off, but there's a chance I'm not gonna be able to. He said he wants to even the bevels. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it 100% without charging way more than I already have. So let's go ahead. I'll get this stuff set up. We'll time warp. You guys won't have to stick around with me. I will get this done momentarily, and then we'll be right back at it. So guys, I have been at this for a few minutes. It's gonna take a good bit of reprofiling. From what I'm seeing on this, I do believe that these were chisel ground. And I'm basically turning this into a V grind. So I'm gonna reach out to the customer and I'm gonna do a little bit of research. I can't check right at the moment because they're working on my internet. So I'll look into this real clearly and then let the customer know, you know, hey, this was originally a chisel grind, but he already said, and I've already started, what he requested, which was to even bevels. So let's see here, where are we at? This is one of those times where I'm gonna do predominantly more work on one side for a while than I am on the other. Now the other thing too is I have to be careful not to screw up the tip with this. I could round that tip over. So let's see here. It's pretty off. I hate spending this much time on this course of a stone. So let's see here. Because this stone is taking off a lot of material. I mean, it's just hogging stuff out, but there is, to try and do it on a less coarse stone, it's gonna take you longer. You have to do it on a stone this coarse. Let's see here. All right, guys, so what we're doing, I'm trying to even the tip out, and I'm already running into where some material is starting to form a burr on the tip. I'm gonna have to clean that up. This is really, 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 really over hard on one side. So we'll see what I can do. You can see it more on the back than you can at the front. So let's see if I can get a shot of that. I'll take a picture of it and then I'll show you guys here in a little bit. All right, guys, so I looked it up a little bit. This knife was not chisel ground. It's just was really poorly ground from the factory. Not all surprising, it was made by Benchmade. So I'm gonna work on realigning these edges a little bit more, but the pause I took was I needed to email the customer as well. I wanted to find out for sure about a couple things so that I wasn't giving you wrong information, and I wanted to email the customer. So, that being said, I'm gonna get back to it here as soon as I find the caps for my bottles. And as soon as my strops are dry, I can get to the stropping I have to do on some other knives. So, let's go ahead and I'll reprofile this, and when I get close to switching to the next stone, I'll let you guys know how long it's taken me. So we're already a few minutes into it. I was doing some work off camera. There's a lot of work needs done to this knife. So I need to find out and make sure the customer understands there's gonna be some additional cost. So, all right guys, pick this back up when I get done on this coarse monster here. Holy crap, guys. That was about 10 minutes in was when I started that time lapse. And I'm still fighting with this area back here. But I believe that we are at a point where I can go to a less coarse stone and stop taking off as much material. Now, I had to rinse this off twice. It completely loaded. I took off enough material that I completely loaded this diamond plate. And D2, if you guys don't know, D2 will rust. And so there's a significant amount of orange that I'm gonna clean up with a brush here a little bit later. I don't like that on the stone because it can get down in and actually cause corrosion on the plate itself, and then you lose your some of your abrasive qualities. This one actually, you can see on this one where it was starting to come apart. So this one has been set to the side. It sits here. That is a flattening, lapping plate exclusively now. As far as diamond plates go, those DMTs are amazing. So next, we will switch to a 220 grit and just see, because sometimes the scratch pattern from that really coarse stone will obscure areas that you might not have gotten all of the old bevel cleaned up. Now, there's definitely, like I said, spots that I believe would make it prohibitively expensive. If I was to completely do an aesthetic repair on this blade, this customer would be looking at almost the price of the knife. So, I mean, these were, I think originally, if I remember right when I looked, they were they were $325. I think they're $158 now, but they are discontinued model, and I didn't see them in stock anywhere when I was looking for the specifications on this knife. But I did find a video that definitely showed that this was not chisel ground. But when you look at that tip, that was factory grind. Very, very poorly ground from the factory. I'd have to say that I think that was the worst ground Benchmade I've ever seen, judging by the amount of how far over that tip was. You can still see it too from the back. Now, if you look at it from the front, the edges are aligned on the front, but it's really bad. I don't think I've seen a Benchmade that bad. I've seen some bad ones, but So like I said, Benchmade made this knife. It was marketed under the Heckler & Koch label. So what we're gonna do is we will go back to some time lapse. So that you can see, I don't know what that noise is. So you can see kind of the work that I'm doing. So I will immediately turn this back on time lapse. And I don't know, there's pee. Actually, I'll just speed it up. I'll double speed it on, or triple speed it on. No, that's gonna take too long. I will actually just do time lapse. Sorry guys, I'm scatterbrained. So guys, that's it. Holy crap. So that was time lapse. So you gotta figure a significant amount of time. And if you'll notice, I wanted to try and point it out. I spend a lot more time on the coarser stones than I do on the finer polishing stones, with the exception of I do spend a lot of time on the 10,000 grit just to make sure that those final shoulders on my edge have been rounded off so that it looks congruous and smooth all the way down. So basically, when I do a knife and the way I do my edges, you wind up with multiple angles through that travel, because I move the stone. You probably can't see it, especially in that, but I move the stone in my hand, and sometimes the knife a little bit as well, depending on how wide the bevels are. And what that does is that makes multiple angles through the travel of that. And as you progress further, you can see it really clearly when you start the process from the actual sharpening, which I say stops at about 600 grit. 600 grit, you can still rectify some minor issues, but you shouldn't be spending too much time on a 600 grit. Get to 1,000, you're not taking off, 600 even as well, you're not taking off a significant amount of material. You're no longer profiling and setting bevel, which is the actual part of sharpening. That's sharpening. Once you get that set, you're no longer sharpening, you're honing. You are refining that edge, refining those angles, smoothing them out, refining the scratch pattern down. So I like to say that once you hit 600 grit, you can do a couple small things, but if it's bad, you're gonna need to go back down. And that's why a lot of guys, I mean, I wear out my 600 grit stones pretty regularly too, but 600 seems to be, on the Edge Pro stones, seems to be the one that wears out the fastest. And so if you find yourself spending a lot of time on a specific stone, as you progress up the grit, you need to go back down a stone, because what you're doing is you're just wearing out that stone. You're trying to make that finer grit stone do work it shouldn't be doing, which is why there was a couple knives I had to hold off on, because there was a delay in getting me this 600 grit stone. So there was a couple knives that I could not use the diamond, you know, these diamond 600 grits or 800 grits on, because it wasn't gonna work. And so now we're at the point where I have to wait for these strops to finish and be completely dry. We'll see. Let's see, how are they still tacky? Fairly dry. So we'll go ahead and strop then. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I know that my spray is expensive, but I put off loading these sometimes too long. And I noticed that I'm starting to not get the results that I truly want. And so this is fresh. The only lines on that now are, so let's see. These do take off material, but a very fine amount. And so you can polish that tops of that scratch pattern that you just put in. Because going from 10,000 grit to 1 micron, that's still a pretty good jump. So that scratch pattern's in deep, but what you're doing is you're just polishing the tops and polishing the refining that a little bit further with these. These are like, I consider these really, really super fine stones. You just can't go both directions on them. So you can see corrected that angle. Ooh, almost spilt my go juice. And you can see we're taking material off. There's now metal on that. And you can see it better when we get to this 1/2 micron, which is perfectly, well, it's pretty much perfectly clean. I think it's got a couple wet spots on it still. It's like after sex. Watch out for the wet spot. I'm a horrible person. So like I said, there we go. This one takes off significantly less material, but you still can see it picking up and holding a little bit of material right there where I was using that strop. So D2 is a pretty good steel. It has a tendency, like I said, to rust. It does, though, take a pretty good polish if you are patient. And you don't necessarily have to go as high in the grit to get a good polish. I just took this to 10. I forget what the customer said he wanted. I think he said he wanted 8. But, you know, I figure I might have to charge him extra for all the massive amount of reprofile that went into this. And there's still a couple spots I need to go back and do some individual spot touch-ups that I can't get on these stones. I'm gonna have to use some of my narrower stones. But I can, that's the nice thing about freehand sharpening. I can isolate those areas and just bring those areas and bring them back in together to a point where, you know, it's not as obvious. But yeah, there's still some spots on this that are horribly ground, and that tip was so bad. But let's see. Let's do I do it on my beard like I usually do, but the fact is I don't have as many. Now, this is an extremely thick edge. Never will be super slicey, but I mean, there we go. So, start to finish, took you guys with me this time. I did use the time lapse, but there we go. The edges are more even. You can see that I have resolved the issue with the asymmetrical tip. Now you can't. At any rate, that's it, guys. End of the video. I will try to get this up. I'll try to get this up today. It's gonna take a little bit of editing, so take it easy, guys. This is a little bit longer one. You guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time.